Welcome back, everyone. You guys sent in some really fascinating stuff this time about positive psychology and happiness.
Yeah, it looks like we've got Sean Akers' Happiness Advantage.
We do, and Martin Seligman's authentic happiness, too.
Oh, and even a piece from Positive Psychology, Principles and Practices.
Right, so we're going to take a deep dive into all that, how happiness can transform, well, pretty much everything, right?
Yeah, work, relationships.
Even your health.
It's not just about, feeling good, It's about actually rewiring your brain for success.
Okay, so that sounds pretty intriguing. Let's start with Akers' book.
The Happiness Advantage.
Yeah, he talks about this whole happiness advantage idea, but it seems a bit, I don't know, backwards. Don't we usually think, like, once we're successful, then we'll be happy?
Well, Aker kind of flips that whole idea around. He's saying that when your brain is positive, it actually, works better. You're more productive, solve problems better, and you're way more resilient when things get tough.
So it's not just about feeling good. It's about your brain actually functioning better when you're happy.
Exactly. He uses this analogy, the fulcrum and the lever. So think of your mindset as the fulcrum. That's the point where everything pivots.
Okay, I'm following.
So positive mindset, that's your lever, gives you more power to reach your goals. But a negative mindset, that's like a weight dragging you down, making everything way harder.
I see. Yeah. So it's not about waiting to be happy once we achieve something. It's about being happy now so we can achieve more.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that. Do you have a favorite example of this, this happiness advantage in action from the book, I mean?
Oh, yeah, there's the study Acor talks about. It was with cleaning staff at a hospital, and they were told their work was like good exercise.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and just that little shift in how they saw their work, thinking of it as beneficial, it actually led to improvements in their health. Like they lost weight, their blood pressure went down.
Wow, just from thinking about it differently.
Yeah, it shows how powerful our mindset can be, how our perception shapes our reality. Yeah.
That's wild. So, okay, I'm convinced positivity is important, but how do we actually train our brains to be more positive?
Well, there's this concept called the Tetris effect. It's in that positive psychology book you mentioned. Have you ever played Tetris for hours?
Oh, yeah. You start to see those blocks everywhere, right?
Exactly. Our brains get kind of wired to see what we focus on. So if we make an effort to notice the positive, even small stuff, we're actually training our brains to look for possibilities, even when things are tough.
So it's like we can rewire our brains to see the good instead of automatically jumping to the negative.
Yeah, that's the idea. Acher, he suggests a simple exercise. Make a list every day of good things. Could be anything, doesn't have to be big.
I like that. Simple, but I bet it makes a difference over time.
It does. It forces your brain to actively look for the positive.
But, sometimes it feels like our brains are wired for negativity. Why does bad news seem to stick with us so much more than good news?
Well, it has to do with something called hedonic adaptation. That's in the positive psychology book, too. We humans, we're really good at adapting to our circumstances. But that includes good stuff, too.
Oh, right. So we get a new job. We're super excited at first.
But then it just becomes, normal.
Exactly. So how do we fight that? How do we stop taking the good stuff for granted?
It's all about awareness, really. If you know this is going to happen, you can make a point of appreciating the good things, even when they start to feel ordinary.
Makes sense. Okay, so we know we should be positive, but actually changing our habits, that's tough. We all know we should exercise more or spend less time on our phones, but how do we actually do it?
Aker has a good tool for that. He calls it the 20-second rule. Basically, make the good stuff easier and the bad stuff harder, even if it's just by a little bit.
Okay, give me an example. How would I use that?
Let's say you want to start exercising in the morning. So instead of leaving your workout clothes buried in your drawer, lay them out the night before. You're already halfway there. Or if you want to be on your phone less, try logging out of everything. Just that little extra step might make you think twice.
I see. So it's all about making the good choices easier and putting a little bit of an obstacle in the way of the bad ones.
Exactly.
Brilliant. Okay, we've been talking about individual actions, but what about our relationships? Do those play a role in this happiness advantage too?
Oh, absolutely. Both Aker and the positive psychology book, they talk about the importance of social investment.
Social investment. What does that even mean?
It just means putting effort into those relationships that matter most to you. Could be a quick chat with a coworker, sending a nice text, or really making time for your family and friends.
So it's not necessarily about big gestures, just those little things that show you care.
Yeah, that's the idea. And, research actually shows that investing in our relationships is one of the biggest predictors of happiness. It even impacts how well we do at work.
That's amazing. Wow. Okay, so just to recap, we've got the happiness advantage, the fulcrum and the lever idea, the Tetris effect, hedonic adaptation, and now social investment. That's a lot. How are we supposed to remember all of this?
Well, Aker is really big on habits and rituals. The key is to just keep doing the positive stuff until it becomes automatic.
Makes sense. Is there a good example of this in the book?
Oh, yeah, he tells this story about a guy who wanted to start working out every morning. So what'd he do? He started sleeping in his gym clothes.
Haha. Okay, I get it.
Right. Just make it as easy as possible to do the right thing.
I love that. Okay, so we've talked about the present, the future, but what about the past? Can we do anything to, like, change how we view our past experiences to make ourselves happier now?
Well, that's where Seligman's work comes in. In his book, Authentic Happiness, he says we actually have the power to change how we think about the past. And he talks about two main tools: gratitude for the good times and forgiveness to let go of the negative stuff.
I've heard of those, but how do they actually help us with the past?
So gratitude helps us focus on the positive memories, really strengthen those. And forgiveness, well, it lets us let go of the anger and resentment so those bad experiences don't have power over us anymore.
So gratitude amplifies the good, and forgiveness helps us release the bad. Makes sense.
Right, and Seligman actually suggests a very specific exercise for gratitude. He says to write a letter to someone from your past, a gratitude letter, and then actually read it to them.
Wow, that sounds, I don't know, pretty intense, but powerful too.
It is. It's a really powerful way to acknowledge the good things in your past and to show appreciation for the people who have impacted your life.
Okay, so we've got gratitude and forgiveness for dealing with the past. But what about anxieties about the future? Can we do anything to feel more positive about what's to come?
That's where optimism comes in. Seligman's research shows that optimism is a skill we can actually develop. It's all about learning to challenge those negative thoughts, and reframe things in a more positive light.
So instead of thinking this is going to be a disaster, we can train ourselves to think, okay, this might be tough, but I can handle it.
Exactly. It's not about ignoring problems. It's about having a realistic but positive outlook, focusing on the possibilities even when things are difficult.
That sounds a lot healthier and more helpful. Are there like specific techniques for building optimism?
Yeah, Seligman came up with something he calls the ABCDE technique. It helps you dispute, like argue with those negative thoughts.
ABCDE, what does that stand for?
It stands for adversity, belief, consequences, disputation, and energization.
Okay, break that down for me. How does that actually work?
So first you identify the negative thought that pops up when you face a challenge. Then you notice how that belief makes you feel and what you do because of it. The next step is to challenge that thought, to argue against it. Like, what evidence do you have that it's true? And finally, you should feel more energized from pushing back against that negativity.
So it's like putting those negative thoughts on trial, making them defend themselves.
That's a great way to think about it. It's about taking control of your thoughts, shifting your focus to solutions and possibilities.
I love that. This is all making so much sense. It's like we're putting together a puzzle, right? All these pieces, positive emotions, finding meaning, strong relationships, they all fit together to make a truly happy and fulfilling life.
That's a great way to put it. And there's so much more to explore, too.
I can't wait. Before we go too far, I'm still thinking about what you said about happiness being tied to meaning and purpose. It feels like we shifted from like practical tips to something, I don't know, deeper.
Yeah, we did kind of move from just seeking pleasure to what Seligman calls gratifications.
Pleasure versus gratifications. Okay, what's the difference?
Well, pleasures are those things that boost your mood right away, like a really good meal or a hot bath or watching something funny.
Okay, yeah?
They feel good, but the feeling doesn't last very long. Gratifications, they're different. They're activities that like really engage you. They use your skills and strength.
Got it. So pleasures fade, but gratifications are longer lasting. Can you give me some examples?
Think about things you do where you totally lose track of time, like playing music or having a really great conversation or getting lost in a project, things that are challenging but you get completely absorbed in them.
So it's like the difference between a sugar rush and a good meal. One gives you a quick boost, the other actually keeps you going.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And Seligman says a life full of gratifications is way more fulfilling than chasing those quick pleasures.
This ties back to what we were talking about before with the whole happiness advantage. It's not just about feeling good. It's about building a life that's, I don't know, meaningful, fulfilling.
Exactly. And that brings us to another cool concept that Seligman talks about, signature strengths.
Oh yeah, signature strengths. I've heard that before, but remind me what those are again.
Well, Seligman believes that each of us, we have these strengths that are like part of who we are. Could be curiosity or kindness or perseverance, even a sense of humor.
So it's kind of like figuring out what you're naturally good at. The things that make you feel, like yourself.
Yeah, that's it. And when we use our signature strengths, we feel more energized, more authentic.
I could see how that would make you happier and more successful too. So how do we figure out what our signature strengths are? Is it just like a gut feeling, or is there something more, I don't know, scientific?
You can definitely think about your own experiences. Like, think about times you felt really alive, really engaged in what you were doing. What were you doing? What strengths were you using?
So I should pay attention to those times when I'm in flow, like completely lost in the moment.
Exactly. And there's actually a tool that can help with this. Seligman created a character strengths survey. It's called the VIA Character Strengths Survey.
Hmm. Sounds interesting. Tell me more.
Well, it's sort of like a personality test, but instead of focusing on, what's wrong with you,
Right.
it focuses on your positive qualities. It looks at 24 character strengths and then tells you which ones are your strongest.
I'm definitely going to check that out. So let's say we figure out our signature strengths. Then what? How do we, like, actually use them?
That's where the real fun starts. It's all about finding creative ways to bring those strengths into your everyday life.
Can you give me an example? How would that actually work?
Sure. Let's say one of your strengths is love of learning. So maybe you join a book club or take a class online or just make time to read every day. If you're really strong in kindness, you could volunteer somewhere or just make a point of doing nice things for people.
So it's about being intentional, about making choices that are aligned with what comes naturally to you. Makes sense. But what about the things we're not so good at, those weaknesses? Shouldn't we be working on those too?
Well, actually, Seligman says that it's better to focus on building our strengths than trying to fix our weaknesses.
So play to our strengths instead of trying to be good at everything.
Yeah, it's about, using your energy to become even better at the things you're already good at.
But wouldn't it be better to be more well-rounded? To improve in the areas where we struggle?
Well, sure, there's always room for growth, but focusing too much on your weaknesses can actually drain your energy. It's like spinning your wheels instead of getting anywhere.
I see. It's kind of counterproductive.
Right. By focusing on your strengths, you're gaining momentum, and that can spill over into other areas of your life. Plus, let's be honest, it feels a lot better, and you're probably going to be more successful doing things you're naturally good at.
Totally. Okay, this all makes sense for, like, our personal lives. But does it apply to work too? Especially, in those jobs that are really high pressure. Can you really stay positive when you're stressed all the time?
That's a great question, and it leads us to like a whole other area where these ideas are being applied, the work parts.
Okay.
There's more and more evidence showing that when companies incorporate these positive psychology principles, it's good for everybody. People are more productive, more engaged, and they like their jobs better.
So happier employees, more productive company. Makes sense. Are there actual companies who are doing this?
Yeah, some companies are starting to implement programs that focus on things like positive emotions, good teamwork, and helping people find meaning in their work. And they're seeing that it actually improves their bottom line.
That's amazing. But what about those jobs that are just, like, inherently stressful? No matter how positive the environment is, can this stuff really help in those situations?
Even in tough jobs, focusing on the positive and using your strengths can make a difference. There is this study of MBA teams that were like really pessimistic, but when they started focusing on their strengths, their performance actually improved.
Wow, even professional athletes can benefit from this.
Yeah, and there's another good example with lawyers. Lawyers are known for being pretty pessimistic.
Makes sense. I mean, their job is all about conflict and arguing, right?
Exactly. But studies show that when lawyers learn to use optimism techniques in their personal lives, they actually feel better and they perform better at work too.
Interesting. So it's about using these tools strategically in different areas of your life.
That's exactly it. It just shows you how powerful these ideas are. They're based on science, and they can actually improve your well-being and your success in every area of your life.
This is so fascinating. We've gone from the science behind happiness to, like, actual techniques, and now we're seeing how it works in our careers. But there's one area we haven't touched on yet, love and relationships. We talk about social investment, but can these principles actually help us build better relationships?
Oh, yeah, definitely. This actually gets into another really interesting part of Seligman's work. He talks about how happiness and signature strengths can make your romantic relationships stronger.
So our strengths can affect our love lives. I'm really curious to hear about this.
It all comes down to a concept called secure attachment.
Okay, I've heard of that, but can you remind me what it means exactly?
Secure attachment means you can trust your partner, you're comfortable being close to them, and you feel safe in the relationship.
Okay, yeah.
It usually starts with how you were raised, but you can actually become more securely attached as an adult.
So where do our strengths fit into all of this?
Well, when you use your signature strengths in your relationship, you feel more like yourself, you feel good, you feel connected to your partner, and that makes the relationship stronger. It creates more trust and intimacy.
So it's like you're bringing your best self to the relationship, letting your strengths shine through.
Exactly. And Seligman's research shows that couples who really appreciate each other's strengths and encourage each other to grow, they're much more likely to be happy together in the long run.
So instead of trying to change our partners or fix their flaws, we should be focusing on what's good about them, helping them be their best selves.
That's the idea. It's about acknowledging and nurturing the positive.
I love that. Okay, so now we're seeing the bigger picture here, right? It's not just about one thing. Positive emotions, using our strengths, having a purpose, strong relationships, they all work together to create a really happy and fulfilling life.
It's incredible, isn't it? And it reminds us that happiness isn't just about those fleeting moments of pleasure. It's about creating a life that's full of meaning, purpose, and real connections.
Okay, but let's be real for a second. We've talked about all these great ideas and research, but life isn't always easy. What about when things get tough? How can we stay positive when we're facing challenges?
That's where those practical techniques we talked about earlier come in. The Tetris effect, the 20-second rule, writing that gratitude letter.
Oh yeah, all those great tools.
They're all designed to help you through those ups and downs. They give you strategies to change your mindset, to bounce back from setbacks, and to find the good even when things are hard.
It's like having a toolbox full of ways to deal with life's challenges.
Exactly. You're building the skills and the mindset you need to get through tough times.
I like that. It's like we're, working out our happiness muscles so we're strong enough for anything.
Exactly. And the more you use these techniques, the easier they get. You're building those positive habits.
Makes sense. Okay, this has all been incredibly helpful, but I got to ask, can we pass this on? Can we use this stuff to raise kids who are happy and resilient? Can we, set them up for success even with all the challenges they're going to face?
That's a great question. And that actually gets into another important part of Seligman's work. He talks about how parents can use these ideas to raise happy and successful kids.
So we're talking about raising kids who aren't just happy, but also, tough, resourceful, ready for whatever life throws at them.
Exactly. Seligman says that parents can actually do specific things to help their kids develop those qualities, even from a really young age.
I'm all ears. What are some of those things?
One of the most important things is to focus on creating positive emotions. You want to create a home environment that's full of love and laughter and joy.
So it's about giving them a strong, positive foundation.
Yeah, exactly. Studies show that kids who experience lots of positive emotions, they're more curious, more willing to try new things, and they're better at dealing with problems when they come up.
Like giving them an advantage right from the start. Are there specific things parents can do to help with this?
Oh, yeah, tons. One simple one is called bedtime nuggets. At the end of each day, spend a few minutes talking with your child about the good things that happened.
Oh, like a nightly gratitude ritual. I
Yeah.
love that.
Ask your child to share 3 good things that happened or specific things they're grateful for. It's a great way to end the day on a positive note, and it teaches them to focus on the good.
So simple, but it makes such a difference. What else can parents do?
Seligman also recommends synchrony games during playtime.
Synchrony games. What are those?
They're just games where you mirror your child's movements and expressions. It creates this feeling of connection and shared joy, like making silly faces at each other, clapping along, playing peekaboo.
It's about being present with your child, having fun together.
Exactly. And studies show that these kinds of interactions actually help kids develop a sense of mastery and control, which is really important for their well-being.
Wow, even something as simple as playing peekaboo can make a difference.
It's true. These positive experiences shape their brains and lay the foundation for a happy and resilient life.
So we've talked about positive environments, gratitude, and play. What about discipline? How can parents discipline their kids in a way that's, healthy and positive?
That's another area where positive psychology can be super helpful. Instead of focusing on punishment, Seligman suggests that parents focus on teaching and guiding their kids.
So less punishment, more guidance.
Exactly. That means setting clear boundaries, explaining the reasons behind those rules, and giving kids the chance to make things right when they mess up.
So you're teaching them responsibility without making them feel bad about themselves.
Right. You're creating an environment where kids feel loved and understood even when they make mistakes.
You're teaching them to make better choices instead of just punishing them for the bad ones.
Exactly. You're helping them develop their own internal sense of right and wrong.
And that helps them be more resilient.
Exactly.
Okay, this is all making so much sense. But there's one thing I wanted to circle back to. We keep talking about meaning and purpose. How does that fit into this whole picture of happiness, especially when it comes to kids?
That's a really great question. It gets to one of Seligman's most important ideas. True happiness isn't just about feeling good. It's about connecting to something bigger than yourself, finding a purpose in your life, and using your talents to make a positive impact on the world.
So it's about finding your why, like what gives you out of bed in the morning.
Exactly. And Seligman believes that this sense of meaning is essential for a fulfilling life.
I can see how that's true for adults, but what about kids? Are they even able to understand the idea of purpose?
Maybe not in the same way adults do, but kids are naturally curious. They want to understand the world. And even at a young age, they're starting to figure out who they are and where they fit in.
So how can parents help their kids develop a sense of purpose?
It starts with encouraging their curiosity and helping them explore their interests. Let them try different things, expose them to new ideas, and help them discover what they're passionate about.
So instead of telling them what to do, Give them space to figure it out for themselves.
Exactly. And as they get older, you can start talking about values, about what matters to them and how they want to make a difference in the world.
Helping them connect their passions to something bigger.
Right. And it doesn't have to be something huge. It could be as simple as teaching them how their actions affect other people, encouraging them to be kind and helpful, or supporting them when they want to get involved in things that align with their values.
It's about those little things that add up over time.
Exactly. And when kids find our purpose, it not only makes them happier, it also gives them motivation, makes them more resilient, and helps them feel good about themselves.
This is all amazing. It's like we're building this, I don't know, this tapestry of happiness with all these different threads. We've got positive emotions, using our strengths, meaningful relationships, and now this idea of purpose and meaning.
It's an incredible tapestry, and it's one we can all keep weaving for ourselves and for our kids. It's a journey of discovery and growth and connection. And it's something we can all do, knowing that we have what it takes to build a life that's full of happiness, meaning, and fulfillment.
This whole conversation has been so insightful. I feel like I have so many new tools for building a happier life for myself and my family,
I'm so glad to hear that. And remember, happiness is a journey, not a destination.
right? It's something we're always working on.
Exactly. It's a process of learning and growing and connecting.
But before we wrap up this part, there's one thing I keep thinking about. Seligman talks about how we often confuse pleasure with happiness. Can you remind me why that's so important?
Of course, it's a really important point, especially when we're talking about building a truly happy life. Remember our conversation about the difference between pleasures and gratifications? Pleasures are those things that give you a quick hit of dopamine, but they fade away quickly.
Like the sugar rush.
Exactly. But happiness, it's more long-lasting. It's not just about feeling good. It's about living a life that's full of meaning and purpose and genuine connection.
So it's about those deeper, more lasting things, rather than just chasing those quick bursts of pleasure.
Exactly. And we often try to use pleasure as a shortcut to happiness, but it doesn't really work that way.
I see what you mean. It might feel good in the moment, but it doesn't really satisfy you. So how can we tell the difference? How can we know if something is bringing us real happiness or just that temporary pleasure?
It can be tricky to tell a difference, but one good way to figure it out is to pay attention to how you feel after you do something. Does it leave you feeling energized and fulfilled, or just, kind of neutral?
Oh, okay. So like if I spend an hour on social media, I might feel a little buzz, but afterwards I usually feel kind of empty.
That's a great example. But if you spend an hour working on a creative project, or volunteering your time, or doing something that's really meaningful to you, you might feel challenged, even a little frustrated during the process. But afterward, you feel a sense of accomplishment and satisfaction.
I get it. It's about focusing on those activities that are aligned with our values and that give us that sense of purpose.
Exactly. And it's different for everyone. What makes one person happy might not do it for someone else.
So there's no one right answer.
Nope. It's about finding what works for you, what brings you joy and meaning, and makes you feel connected to something bigger than yourself.
I think that's a great place to stop for this part of our conversation. This has been such an amazing deep dive. Thank you so much for walking me through all of this.
It's been my pleasure. And remember, happiness is something you can learn. It's a skill you can develop. The more you practice, the better you get at it.
And for our listeners, as you continue your journey towards a happier life, pay attention to those things that make you feel truly alive. Those are clues to what will bring you lasting happiness. It really is encouraging to know we can actually do something to be happier. It's not just like random luck.
Exactly. It's about, shifting our perspective. Instead of just trying to fix what's wrong, we can focus on building what's right.
Earlier, you mentioned how Seligman's research, it goes beyond just individuals and couples. He talks about institutions too, right?
Yeah, he talked about how important positive institutions are for, everyone's well-being.
So we're going from the personal level to, a bigger picture, society as a whole.
Right. Seligman's argument is that places like schools, workplaces, even whole communities, they can be designed to help people be their best, to be happier, kinder.
Okay, I love that. But how would that actually work? Can you give me an example?
Sure. Imagine schools that, don't just focus on grades and test scores. They also teach kids to be kind and curious, to never give up.
Yeah, and workplaces that actually care about their employees?
Exactly. Places where people feel supported and they have opportunities to learn and grow.
So it's not just about surviving, it's about thriving.
That's it. It's a pretty new area of research, but it's really exciting to think about how we can create a world where everyone has the chance to be their best.
Wow, okay, now I'm really starting to get the full picture of what Seligman is talking about. It's not just about individual happiness, it's about creating a world where everyone has the chance to be happy and healthy.
Yeah, exactly. It's a whole new way of thinking about things.
This whole deep dive has been incredible. We've covered so much. The science behind happiness, all those practical tips, the whole idea of signature strengths and meaning and purpose, even how to raise happier kids. My head is spinning.
Aha, I know, right? There's a lot to unpack. But it's all connected, you know?
It is. Before we wrap up completely, though, I wanted to go back to one thing that Seligman talks about, the whole idea of confusing pleasure with happiness. Can you remind me why that distinction is so important?
Sure. It's super important for creating a life that's truly fulfilling. Remember we talked about the difference between pleasures and gratifications?
Yeah.
Pleasures, they give you that instant gratification, like, the first bite of cake or the thrill of a roller coaster. It feels good, but it fades quickly.
Right, it's like a sugar rush.
Exactly. But happiness, it's deeper than that. It's about living a life that has meaning, a life that has purpose and connection.
So it's not just about chasing those fleeting good feelings. It's about building a life that's truly satisfying.
Right. And a lot of times we try to use pleasure as a way to get to happiness. Like it's a shortcut, but it doesn't really work.
I see what you mean. It might feel good in the moment, but it doesn't last. So how can we tell the difference? How do we know if something is really making us happy, or if it's just a temporary pleasure?
It really tough, yeah. But one good way to tell is to pay attention to how you feel after you do something. Does it give you energy? Does it make you feel fulfilled? Or do you just feel kind of meh?
Okay, so if I'm scrolling through social media for an hour, I might feel a little buzz while I'm doing it. But afterwards, you usually just feel kind of empty,
Yeah, that's a great example. But if you spend an hour doing something you're really passionate about, something that aligns with your values, even if it's challenging,
right?
you'll probably feel much better afterwards, even if you were frustrated or tired during the process.
It's about finding those things that light us up, the things that connect us to something bigger than ourselves.
Exactly. And the thing is, it's different for everyone. What makes one person happy might not work for someone else.
So there's no magic formula.
Nope. It's about finding what works for you, what brings you joy, what gives you meaning, what makes you feel connected to something bigger than yourself.
I think that's a perfect note to end on. This deep dive has been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all of this with me.
It's been my pleasure. And remember, happiness is a skill. It's something you can work on and get better at. The more you practice, the happier you'll be.
And to our listeners, we hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the science of happiness. As you go out into the world, pay attention to those things that give you energy, the things that make you feel truly alive. Those are your clues to a happier and more fulfilling life. Thanks for joining us. CCAE.